Hey there, so you are a new nonprofit founder and you're trying to figure out what should you be focused on when you're starting your nonprofit. I'm going to give you a 7-point checklist. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running. So if you need help with your nonprofit, make sure you subscribe because I drop videos every week and I talk about startup, but I also talk about raising startup funding. And what I wanted to talk about today is what do you focus on? How do you know where to put your energy so you're not losing track? And so you just make sure you don't make any mistakes, because a lot of founders that I talk to really worry about making a misstep and getting in trouble. So I thought I would offer a quick checklist to help you figure out what to concentrate on. Now, obviously, I'm talking in very general terms, and I'm just bringing up some broad areas you should be focused on, but there may be other areas that you may even want to contribute to in the comment section below, so just keep that in mind. And if you're thinking about starting a nonprofit, but you're not sure what to do, make sure you download my free startup checklist, which is in the description box below. So the first area you want to have on your checklist is a big category that I will call planning. So unfortunately, when people start their nonprofits, they're often driven by maybe an event. Maybe you do something every year and you just want to actually put some structure around it, so you want to create a nonprofit. So you do a code drive and you want to put a nonprofit around that, right? But you're not necessarily planning for the long term around what that looks like. You just know that you want to create a nonprofit because probably you're tired of putting your own money into it and you want to access different types of funding. Or you may not have done anything before, but you know you want to do something great and you feel well, the idea I have is so good that people are just going to start throwing money at it. Or let me throw another scenario out there. Maybe people have already financially supported you, and because you've gotten that financial support and you know for sure that people will get behind your story or your mission, you just went ahead and created the nonprofit to respond to people's interest in what you're doing. So those are a couple different scenarios that I've heard when people are starting their nonprofit, but none of those scenarios should keep you from planning. A lot of people they bristle at planning because the idea of having to sit down and actually write out what you want to do, for a lot of people who are super creative or you're a visionary, because probably if you're watching this, you're a visionary and you get great big ideas, you don't want to sit down and think about how to execute it. You just want to do it. But I am kind of the opposite of that. I'm more of a planner. I actually spend too much time trying to write down and figure out, okay, how I'm going to do this and what I need to do. And oftentimes that keeps me from executing. But I'm just saying all this to say you need to plan. So you should really think about, if we have a nonprofit organization and we're starting this year, how do we want our organization to grow and to be in year 3, in year 5, in year 10? Because your vision of that will impact the path that you take. So if you have never really thought about where you want to grow and how you want to expand, it may limit you, honestly. And also, people who are trying to get behind you or joining your board may not have the same vision. They may not have the same idea of where you want to go. And if you never sit down together and think through that, then you're going to encounter some barriers. So I really encourage you to sit down and say, okay, after 1 year, this is how we want our organization to grow. After 3 years, maybe even 20, because some people have big dreams. They want to create $1 million organizations and they want to employ a lot of people and they want to employ themselves, and so they may be looking at their nonprofit one way, whereas some people really aren't interested in getting paid by the nonprofit. They just want to make sure that this service is available in their community, so they may be more interested in being volunteer led or staying small or staying within a specific scope. But if you never sit down and ask yourself where you want to go, you don't really have a concept of that. And how you plan and the decisions you make are impacted by what your vision is long term. And you really need to be able, as a nonprofit founder, to communicate whatever the vision is to people, because they need to know how they can fall in line, how they can support you, and they need to have the same idea of what it is. Because there's nothing worse of having like people on your board. I'm specifically talking about the board, where one person is thinking y'all going to be a certain type of organization, another person has an idea of this type of organization, and that may clash. And this doesn't even have to like relate to size. It could be, like I said, the type of organization or the culture of your organization. Maybe you want your culture to feel small and to feel grassroots, right? And so you may not want to make certain decisions as a nonprofit because you want to keep that kind of culture. But other people may be looking at it as more corporate, as more traditional, and there are certain decisions that they would make or certain partnerships that they would have that other people may not agree with if they have a different concept of what they want the nonprofit to be. So this is the kind of stuff you need to ask yourself in the beginning. Who do we want to be as an organization? What are our values? What's our vision? What's our mission? How do we want to accomplish the things that we want to do? And you need to always have a plan that aligns with that vision. See how I came back to planning? Because you're like, how do we get on vision? How do we get on this when you were talking about planning? But the planning comes out of what you want your vision to be. The planning comes out of how you see your nonprofit and the kind of organization that you want to be. So you should not bristle at or avoid doing things like your budgets or doing things like financial plans. And it seems daunting. Like when you hear the word financial plan, in your head, you're probably like, I don't have the expertise to do that. I need like an accountant to do that for me. But that's actually not the case. Sometimes a plan can just be, what do we want to do to get to our goal? And you're just literally writing it down on a piece of paper. And that's it. But you need to have something so you've thought about it. So you've gone through the process of trying to figure out the pathway that you want to take. And then as you grow and as you get more skilled at what you do, maybe your plans will be a little bit more detailed and a little bit more comprehensive. But you got to be planning and thinking about your vision and where you want to go as a founder. The second thing that should be on your list is finding a mentor. And let me just say this. If you ask any person who has started a nonprofit, whether they've been in it 2 years or they've been in it 20 years, they're all going to say the same thing. This journey is difficult. That doesn't mean it's not rewarding. That doesn't mean it's not worth it, but it is absolutely difficult. And you're going to find along the way, no matter what you do, no matter how well you plan, you're going to make mistakes. There are going to be things that you don't realize you should be doing, and you're going to find out after the fact. Or you're going to encounter some situations that you never would have thought you would have had to encounter or have to experience being a nonprofit founder. And having someone who has been in your shoes, especially in your local area, or someone who's in your industry or does similar work, is invaluable, because that person can help you navigate. That person can help with bouncing ideas. That person can help you feel vulnerable and be able to share. And honestly, that person can help you feel less isolated, because it's a unique experience being a nonprofit founder, and your family and your friends are just not going to get it. Like, they're not going to understand, and it can feel lonely. So I suggest, as soon as you can, find somebody who preferably is in your local area, or find somebody who's in your industry that can help guide you and be the person you can go to and confide in when you're confronted with different things. Now look, I know what some people are going to do when they hear me say this. They're going to write under this video and say, Tiffany, won't you be my mentor? Tiffany, I've been trying to get you to be my mentor. Let me just say this. I can be your general mentor, right? But I don't have a nonprofit, right? I have experience in helping people start and launch their nonprofit, but I, even myself, am not in the shoes of a nonprofit founder. And you need different kinds of people around you. So look, I can be your virtual guide, but you need somebody who's in it, or somebody kind of close to that, who's close to being in it, right? You need somebody to help you in real time, and preferably somebody, again, in your local area, or somebody who's in your industry. And I'm not just saying you need one mentor. Like, you can have multiple mentors. So I can be a virtual mentor, but it's really important to have someone that can understand where you are so you feel less isolated. Okay, the third thing you need to have on your checklist is just awareness of things around compliance and around good governance. It's especially important when you have a nonprofit to be mindful of the decisions you make, especially the decisions you make around money and around your board. Because ultimately, when it comes to the IRS, they're concerned with how you make decisions about how you're going to use resources available to you. And you want to make sure that, first of all, you understand what their interests are, right? You understand why the IRS is interested in that kind of stuff at all and what they expect of you. So you should have a list, first of all, of paperwork that you have to complete every year. That was something that was really helpful for me. I had to literally write it down and say, okay, I got to submit this document for this state. I got to submit this document for the IRS. And I had to put dates, and I just had to have a sheet that I looked at every month to make sure that I was on top of it. And I put ticklers on my calendar. This is something that you can't afford to let go by the wayside. And what I tended to do, which I don't want you to do, is when I would get overwhelmed, when I was in this situation, I would just block it out, right? I know there's a document that I have to submit, but I'm so overwhelmed, I don't even want to think about it. And months go by, and before you know it, you look up and you're late. And what happens when you're late with paperwork is that more than likely it's a penalty, or it can really cause issues moving ahead with your nonprofit, right? So I'm just being completely transparent with you that it's so easy to fall down. It's so easy not to submit your paperwork or be late on things or fail at like making sure you're doing things with good governance. It's okay. But my recommendation to you is to get ahead of that and just be mindful of the things that you need to do to be compliant. And it's not just paperwork to the state, but it's also in terms of how you operate. What are the policies that you need to have in place, right? What are the processes, like yearly assessments that you do as a board to see where you are? Like, what are the internal processes you want to have in place just to make sure that you're checking up on things, to make sure that you're in compliance and you're operating as the IRS would expect you to do if you have 501c3 status. So I just wanted to throw that one out there because I know this one scares a lot of people and you gotta get ahead of it. So I have a couple of resources that might be helpful for you. So the first thing is I actually have a nonprofit startup masterclass and also a boards masterclass. One of the things that most people don't understand about starting a nonprofit is what it means to have good governance and what it means to be in compliance. So those two masterclasses in particular walk through important things you need to be aware of, like tipping or like the duties of board members and what they're responsible for. Those are key for you to know and for you to understand. And you can also use those resources when you purchase them and play them in your board meetings and discuss them in your board meetings so everyone understands, not just you as the founder. I also have a free compliance checklist. So if you want to keep track of all your deadlines and things that you're responsible for throughout the year, I have a list of things that typically all nonprofits need to pay attention to. So you can just fill in your specific stuff for your state. I'm linking that free checklist below so you can grab it for yourself. Number 4 is a big one that I think that a lot of people don't realize. So it's all around building relationships with your board. That should be top of your list. Now, here's the thing. Here's the attitude that a lot of nonprofits come to their nonprofit with. If I pick somebody on my board, they're there to help me, right? They're there to help make sure I can get this going, right? Why am I worried about how I can serve them or satisfy something for them? They should come ready to work. Now, I want to just break this down a little bit just to make sure you have the right attitude when you're approaching people to serve on your board. Now, I absolutely in other videos have talked about board members need to come to a nonprofit, especially a new nonprofit, ready to work. That's a given. Like, you should not be recruiting people unless it's very special circumstances. You should not be recruiting people who are not willing to do tasks, to write up things, to make introductions for you because you're a startup. And as a startup, you're scrappy. Like, you got to take every opportunity and you got to be intentional about the things that you do. And you can't afford to have people who are not willing to do that in your startup phase. All right. So absolutely, your board members should come ready to work. But I want you to think about like what it takes for people to work. Like, you can't just bring people together who who more than likely you're bringing people who don't know each other. They just have some kind of connection to the cause and expect them to be able to work well together and make decisions together for a whole new organization. And the startup phase is messy anyway. So you're bringing all those dynamics into it, and you can't afford not to pay attention to like building relationships and building camaraderie with that board. So as a nonprofit founder, you should be thinking critically about how can I make sure that this board can work together? What are the things I need to do one-on-one with these people to make them feel comfortable, to motivate them, to make sure they're getting something of value out of this? And what do I need to do to help the board as a collective work better together? That's something you should be thinking about. If you're thinking that all you got to do is pick people and they come to meetings and they should be ready to step right in and go to work, then more than likely you're going to be very frustrated, because rarely that's not how it works. When you're dealing with people, I like to say when you're dealing with boards, this is people work. You have to think about what motivates people. And oftentimes you got to ask them like, what motivates you? What brings you to the board? What would get you excited? What do you want to work on? What do you want to learn more about? It has to also be about them too. It can't just be about you as a founder and you wanting to get this going. You do have to focus on building a bond between the people who are going to be working with you. So again, I talk a lot about this in the board's masterclass. I'm linking that below, but just don't forget about the fact that this is you're dealing with human relationships and you're dealing with human nature. So just don't forget about that in like the frenzy to start your new organization. So the fifth thing that should be on your checklist is making new partnerships and always thinking about collaboration, like having a mind of collaboration. So when you're starting out and you don't know a lot of people and you're not well known, it can feel like, why would anybody be interested in knowing more about me or knowing more about our mission, right? So it can feel kind of daunting when you don't really know a lot of people and you get stuck saying, well, nobody's going to give to us because they don't know us, right? So we got to pay a lot of money to get like heavy marketing, or we got to pay a lot of money for ads because that's the only way that people are going to get to know us. And that's not true. The way people get to know you is through relationships, one by one. So my piece of advice is focus heavily on building partnerships with people, building collaborations. Meet people everywhere you go. Try to meet people and learn more about people online. Try to meet people and learn about people in your local community, and take intentional effort, like make intentional efforts to get yourself in different rooms, to be able to talk about the work that you do, to be able to lift up your mission, to be able to lift up your cause, to find people who might be attracted to the work that you're doing. And it's going to feel while you're doing this like you're doing it for naught. Like you're just talking about your organization and no one's listening. But if you talk long enough and you're consistent enough, you're going to get people who take interest in what you're talking about and are going to want to know more, or they're going to want to connect you to other people. This is about relationships. If you want to grow your visibility, if you want people to learn to trust your organization, it's about building those relationships. So make sure you leverage free tools available to you. If you're an organization that does not have a lot of marketing dollars, figure out how to get in spaces, go to meetings, join boards, join associations, or whatever to meet new people. And when you're meeting new people, have a spirit of collaboration. Ask them what they're doing. Be genuinely curious about what they have going on, and go to coffee, like do Zoom invites. It just takes 15 minutes to do stuff like that. Hey, I just want to know more about what you're doing. I noticed that you were doing this in the community and it seems so interesting. Can we chat just to compare notes, to, learn about what each other are doing? It's just that simple. But from those conversations, there's so many things that can come out of that. So on your list should be always thinking about how you can partner with people and how you can meet new people. So number 6 on your list should be around your programming. And I don't talk a lot about programming on this channel or with Boss on a Budget, because I feel like if you're starting a nonprofit and you want to do some good in your community, a lot of you have been doing this work probably already for a long time, and the work is so specific to local areas. So I don't feel like I can tell you how to do your work or how to perfect your work, because everybody's different. Some people working in health, some people working in child welfare, some people work with animals and the environment, and I can't speak to all those different areas. So I stay away from programming, but I do want to say a couple things when it comes to your programming. Always be looking for ways to improve your programming. Always look for ways that you can introduce innovation into the programming that you're doing. And you being innovative or unique about how you do your programming will attract new people to you. So how I just talked about, like meeting new people and, you know, getting partnerships, people will be interested in you if you position yourself as an organization that's doing something different or doing something unique. So I want you to pay attention to how you're doing your programming and capturing the experience that people have of your programming, so you can show the outcome, so you can show the numbers. So I want you to think about collecting data around your programming and always paying attention to that. I want you to think about, are there different models or different approaches or different curricula that you should be paying attention to that you can incorporate into your program? Always look at other organizations and what they're doing. And though you may not do everything exactly the same, there's something you can learn from them. There's something you can take away from that. So I want you to just pay attention to that and always be looking to grow your program and make it better. Don't just stick with the status quo. Don't just do just enough, because when you push and you go the extra mile, people will pay more attention to what you're doing. So I just wanted to throw something out there specifically related to programming, that it's just as important to pay attention to that, even though I don't talk about it a lot on this channel, but it's just as important to make sure you're excellent at what you do, and you're always looking to grow or evaluate what you're doing so you can be better. The last thing on the list, number 7, shouldn't be a surprise by anyone who watches this channel, it's fundraising. You need to have that on your list just permanently. As a founding board, I'm not just going to put this on the founder. It's the responsibility of the board to ensure the financial health of the organization, and everyone should be taking part in doing some kind of fundraising. Now, that's just a responsibility of boards generally, but especially when it comes to startup boards, everybody has to be invested in making sure the organization is financially sound, or making sure that the organization has a plan to be able to secure the financial resources to do the work that you do. Because let's be real, y'all, you can't do the work unless you have the financial resources to back it up. And maybe you can do it for a little while, but eventually you're going to get burnt out. And we need to be real about the fact that we need money in order to be able to do good work. You can't be shy about it. You can't be shy about saying that, and you can't be shy about going after money or asking for money. And I'm just going to say right now, there's nothing wrong with asking for money, right? There's nothing wrong with fundraising. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people have like some things about money and asking for money, but you got to get it in your head that that's how you're going to survive and that's how you're going to stick around. So I want you to always be thinking about, what's the plan in terms of funding your organization? You need to always be thinking about what's your budget, right? What does it cost to do the work that you're trying to do? What does it cost to reach your goals for the year? And what are you going to do to put in place to reach those financial goals? What are different fundraising strategies that you can grow or you can learn from that you can incorporate in your organization? And what are some ways that you're going to continue to engage people who have already supported you? Because that's important too. You need to be building relationships with people who have already showed you support so that they're willing to support you again, but also be an ambassador for you so they can bring other people to the table to support you. So fundraising, I don't have to say a lot about that because all of my videos talk about that, but that absolutely needs to be on your list, and it needs to be top of mind so you always are paying attention to where the money is coming from. Thank you guys so much. Are there other things that need to be on the list? Obviously there are. I can't cover everything in a video, but those are just 7 that came to me as I was thinking about and planning for this video. If there are other things as a founder you believe people should pay attention to, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. And also check out all the resources I left for you in the description box. If you need help with your nonprofit, make sure you go to www.bossonabudget.com. For those who are asking, yes, I do provide consultation. Yes, I do provide assistance, and all of that information can be found on my website. Thank you so much for watching me. I will see you in the next video.